Today's episode is so flippin' delicious. I just listened back to this whole thing after editing it and was like, damn, we went in. This conversation essentially unfolded into such a perfect breakdown of what it takes on all levels to devote yourself back to your practices, back to your rituals, and really back to the person that you want to be. So if you struggle with getting up in the morning, or you feel like you want to build a new habit and then you have a hard time doing it, whatever resistance you've been facing, usually there's a deeper thing, right? And the hack is not, so simple. Sometimes we have to go deeper and kind of rethink our entire approach. So Nikki and I basically deep dive really what it means on a core level, on a deep, complex level, the balance of masculine and feminine, right? What does that mean energetically? What does that mean physically for your life? And how do you leverage flow state to do what you want to do, right? We want to spend our days doing the things that we know are good for us, that we know bring us joy, presence, resilience, all the things. So we dive into that. It's super clear, super tangible, inspiring, great motivation. So I really hope you guys enjoy. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please be sure to leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and send us a message if you're listening and you're enjoying it, or maybe share it with a friend who might be able to get something from it. Without further ado, let's dive in.
What's up, guys? I'm Nikki.
I'm Bella, and this is the Out of Our Minds podcast, a playground for mystics and self-explorers to journey through the vast realms of the universe, cultural landscapes, and spiritual expansion.
Join us weekly as we dive into thought-provoking discussions that unveil the mysteries of existence and nurture the growth of our consciousness. All right. Well, welcome in, guys. Today I'm excited about this episode because Bella and I have been talking a lot about how we're going to discuss kind of like our devotion to our practices and really leaning into the things that allow us to tap into the true essence of who we are and our power and our energy. And there's just so much that we can dive into here. So stay a while. You're going to learn a lot about how to really integrate these practices into your own life and figure out, using your intuition, how you can stabilize yourself into a routine that allows you to access this energy. We're going to get into it here. So Bella, why don't we start with you dropping us into a little bit on your 30-day Instagram hiatus that you just completed.
Round of applause for myself. So difficult. LOL. Yeah, actually, basically like the last 30 days have been very interesting for me because just by taking Instagram out, I created all this room to just kind of realize where I was at, especially with like consumption in my life. And I'm usually very tapped in to like just watching my favorite creators and following along with my friends on Instagram and all the things. And I think it's good. Like, I think it's really great to have a full, just to be tapped in to what you care about. Like, it's very inspiring, but it can also get to an extreme where you're just wasting your time scrolling and you're not realizing really what's happening. Like, you're not aware of the energy that you're tapped into. And I just basically had the intuitive pull that I was like, I think I should just take a break from this and see what happens. And by the end of the 30 days, I wasn't actually like necessarily excited to go back. I was more like, all right, I think I should hop back in here just to kind of like touch base and like see what I can do with this, with my relationship to this app. And it kind of just made me realize, one, all the times that I was going to fill the void by scrolling. And when I say the void, just meaning like all the in-between moments of life where you don't actually need to be doing anything, but you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the toilet. I'll just take my phone with me. And then you're like, this is like, why? Like, there's actually not a reason to do this. And when you do that, you're just filling your subconscious with other people's lives. And I think, Nikki, you reposted this TikTok the other day. It was like, you can wake up and create your life or consume other people's life.
Dude, how hard did that one hit? I was like, repost.
Yeah, that was.
And the video with it, like, really.
Yeah, it's just a chick laying in bed fucking scrolling versus getting up and like, meditating, going to the gym, like all the things that are just good, wonderful things to do. That was such perfect timing for me to see that because it perfectly encapsulated what I wanted to take out of my Instagram hiatus, which was just a much bigger awareness of how I am spending my time and the difference between consuming and creating,
Mm.
and how consumption can actually help me and not hurt me. And already in going back, so first of all, I haven't actually downloaded the app again. I've just been posting through the desktop app, which has been so nice because I feel like I'm probably going to end up getting the app again because I don't think you can post on stories without the app. But for now, I'm like slowly reintegrating because my problem before was I was so attached to everything happening on that one app. Like every view that my story would get, or the responses I got, or like lack thereof of responses. And I realized I was making so much meaning out of just this one fucking app that is not even real. Like it's showing me real people's lives, but it's sucking me out of what's actually real in my daily life, like my physical reality. And I just wanted to like reset what that meant and not be so sucked into it. And I'm realizing now, like by using it just on my desktop, it feels so much more chill. Like I just hop on and I write some words in the caption. I'm typing it on my computer. So it just feels a lot more like, I don't know, official in a way, which makes it feel detached. And then I just hit post and I X out. And I'm realizing that that is so important because the problem with these apps and the algorithms, what I'm realizing is they are created to like completely fuck your mind. Like they want to tug on your strings of like needing social connection and looking for approval and wanting to know how many likes you get. Like these are all tribal biological things built into us. So I think that my whole point is one of the biggest takeaways for me is just being aware of how these tools can be used as weapons if we are not careful. And it's not to say that there's like an evil fucking puppet figure behind it. Maybe. I'm not like a huge fan of Mark Zuckerberg, but like it's more so just that any tool can be turned into a weapon if we're not conscious about it, if we're not thinking about the way that we use it. So I don't know. I feel like I'm definitely rewriting my relationship with Instagram, and I hope that I can maintain a good detachment from it because that was just where it was affecting my creativity, my mental health, was defaulting to thinking like scrolling on it was going to give me inspiration, when in reality being off of it this past month has resulted in a lot more clarity, a lot more presence. Just I just feel better. Like it's not even like anything crazy has happened in my life. I just feel so much better than usual.
Right. I love what you said about like creating over consuming, because I think it's so important to clarify what that really means to you and to be in tune with when you are creating versus when you are consuming. Because as a creator, we can really easily fall into the trap of thinking like, oh, like I work on this app, like this is my job, I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be like, no, your job is literally taking 2 minutes to post that photo, and then the rest of it is just consumption, which is all something that you can minimize.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like that's also what happened was just my screen time on the app was so high. And yeah, we just make all these excuses of like, I need to be on there to like engage with my DMs and whatever, but you're gonna scroll. Like you're gonna get sucked into looking at things on your feed. That's the next level, is if you want to use the app for its benefits, which I think it's actually amazing. Like I missed being so connected to people. That's something that I actually think was a real benefit of something particularly like Instagram. Is I I don't I have basically no 99% of my friends do not live near me. Like I have 5 actual close friends in my vicinity, and that means I only connect to people digitally, like through text and phone calls and Zoom and Instagram and TikTok and all those things. So I actually do miss like seeing people's lives in that way. The problem is I think with Instagram you just get sucked into like following all sorts of people that they're not necessarily a benefit. And it's not to say everything has to have like a net positive effect on you, but you everything is like a, what's the word? Like an energetic cord. Like every time you're tapped into someone, like you're exchanging energy, you're exchanging a vibration, like something is happening there and you have to be aware of it, or else it just turns into like that subliminal feeling of unease where you're like, I feel weird because I'm tapped into like 40 fucking people's energy in one sitting. Like that is way too much.
And don't underestimate the power of the mute button.
Yeah, I went on an unfollowing spree yesterday just on my computer. I unfollowed like 300 people. I literally just did it. Holy shit. Sorry. I don't know what just
She's
happened
speaking
there.
her truth. Speaking her
fucking
truth.
fucking something just came out of my throat chakra. Jesus. That literally was not like a cough. It was like a eruption.
An energy. Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just did it like intuitively. Like I just was like, yay or nay, yay or nay, yay or nay, unfollow, unfollow, unfollow. It didn't even mean anything. And that's the thing of the other part of it. It becomes so much of an energy investment because you're like, oh, I don't want them to think that I don't like them because I unfollowed them, or oh, I should give them like a courtesy follow back. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like, what is the substance of that act? And like, how are we blurring the lines between just what we think is a real, genuine connection and what is just an Instagram connection? And I know from real life experience, I've made like real life connections off of Instagram. So you can have like genuine friendship connections. I mean, fucking prime example is literally us sitting here. But you need to be able to discern between the two. And I think it's really easy to slip into like thinking that your life is this like beautiful, abundant thing, but maybe you're actually really fucking lonely. You need to look at that in your real life and not just always escape online, which is definitely something I fell prey to because I was very lonely here for a long time.
Yeah. This is like such an important topic. And we talked a little bit about this in episode 2 with like mindful consumption. But I think it's just so freaking important to check in with where these energetic cords are existing in your life. Like sometimes it really helps just to like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like sit in, oh, you did do this, where you sat in meditation and like you viewed an energetic cord, and literally I take my fingers and I put them into these little scissor motions, and you just imagine yourself like cutting these energetic cords so that you can really start to claim your power back. And you just have so much more energy when you're able to like play with your own beingness within without it being sucked out of you, which is like definitely what I want to dive into today with all these topics, with devotion and routines and rituals. So why don't we each kind of give an update on where we're at with routines versus intuitiveness and what our journey has been with that. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think whenever July rolls around, it's always like a 6 months left of the year. Like, what are we gonna do with it? And I was kind of excited to like check in with my goals, and just I was reflecting back to where I was in January and when I was like setting my 6-month vision. 6 months is great because it feels totally doable. It's like a long enough stretch of time that anything could happen, but it's also short enough that it's tangible. You're like, okay, I know what 6 months feels like. So I just, I've been really thinking about what I want to get out of my day-to-day life and what I want to, manifest essentially. And because of that, my intuition is kind of calling me to like being, like you're saying, in devotion. And the word that actually came up for me specifically was commitment, because currently the bane of my existence and the thing that I work on every other, I don't know, week, just all the time, is my mornings. I'm not a morning person by nature. It's actually in my chronotype that I struggle to get up in the morning. Like, yes, I know I can improve my mindset on that, but part of it I think is like I really have a thing where it's the bear chronotype. If I don't wake up at the first alarm, I'll keep sleeping several hours. Like I will just infinitely sleep. It's fucking crazy. So the point is, the odds are stacked against me, but I do want to be a morning person. And it's not that I'm like, oh, it's aspirational and everyone fucking does it on social media. I feel better when I wake up. And this is what Nikki and I were just talking about, like through voice notes earlier today, was basically I came to this realization through the help of Nikki of realizing that sometimes I choose this goal of wanting to have a morning routine as like a transactional chore and thinking that it will get me something in life, which I do think is true. I think life is better and you actually get more things done when you get up on time and like keep promises to yourself. However, the like deeper part of it was me realizing that I was viewing a season of committing to an early morning routine, for example, as like me meaning I need to work on myself and that there's like something wrong with me, which I realize is kind of like a negative view of the act of getting up on time, which is really just something so enjoyable. Like I fucking love waking up a little bit earlier than usual. It's peaceful, it's calm, like it just is a nice existence. And every time I picture my highest self, she's always like doing her little morning thing. Like I think there's a reason why most people in their dream life envision a slow morning, and it's because it's such a symptom of like feeling at peace and being able to be slow and be present. And that shouldn't be tarnished by this idea of like I need to fucking heal and hustle myself into greatness. It's like I think that's what adds resistance, and that's why I don't do it, maybe because I have this like subconscious thing where I'm like treating the season of life where I want to recommit to being up early as meaning that I am like lacking or something. And there's something about that that's a little bit off.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we were talking about this before, but such a big shift for me was this realization that I actually don't need to do all these things to make myself more complete or whole or a better person. Like I already am complete and whole. And the moment I shifted my perspective on that, I accessed this like feeling of self-love in the present moment that wasn't outside of myself. It wasn't after the morning routine. It wasn't after a week of waking up early. It was just there in the moment. And then what became available to me was this feeling of like, wait, I'm like so worth doing these things that make me feel so freaking good. And it was this huge realization of like waking up early is actually something that allows me to access like this already existent like energy and power that's within me. And it's like a privilege that I give myself to like do these things, and it's a positive thing. And from that angle, you take the action with this energy of like curiosity and love and non-judgment and just like compassion. And that actually has allowed me to, I feel like, shift over the past week and with just like a lot more grace. And what used to feel like I need to do something, I have to do something, or like I should do this, now it just becomes this, whoa, like I get to feel this good.
Yeah.
And like, let's see how freaking good it gets. And I've had this whole switch in my perspective on devotion. And I like to use the word devotion over discipline because back in the day when I first started like my journey of like being healthier and working out, all the things that I was doing were coming from a place of lack and not enoughness. And the discipline that I put into my life came from my ego trying to feel more whole and complete. And I always had this like adverse reaction to being disciplined with like my spiritual practices and my movement. And I like went so into the intuitive side of that, which like really served me at that time because it allowed me to kind of detach from that belief that I needed to do certain things in order to feel a certain way. But now I feel like I'm approaching this season where I'm coming to realize that it takes like a special energy of devotion to your practices to really access and like unlock that power within you and that alignment.
Yeah.
And it's when we finally want that for ourselves and know that we're worthy of feeling that, where the practices actually become this like really playful, cool chance to unlock our highest timeline.
Yeah.
So just going back to what you're saying about the seasons too. Like, let's talk a little bit about that because you mentioned that, and that's something that we talked about outside of this podcast. Like, it's okay if you were just in a season of being more intuitive. Like, there is a purpose for every season that you're in. Maybe you were leaning into this intuitive way of taking care of yourself because it gave you the insight into like the softness,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing is like, okay, for example, because maybe this is very relatable for some people. When I'm laying in bed in the morning, right? My alarm goes off at 8:30. Like it's not even that fucking early, but for me I'm like, "Oh fuck." The story in my mind is like I just wake up and there's already like the two like angel and demons on my shoulder, okay? One is like, "Come on, you know you will like this. You know you'll be happy if you wake up right now. Like just get up. It's not that hard. Just fucking roll out of bed." And then the other part of me is like, but sleep is so kind and good. Don't you just want to? Yeah, it just feels nice. It's okay. It's okay. Just sleep. It's okay. And then I pass out. Okay. The voice that is lulling me back to sleep is not my intuition. It's my fucking ego. I'm pretty sure. Like, yes, I don't know. I'm pretty torn on this. And I also think it's probably a futile thought experiment because it's like who like whatever you're having voices in your head, like just pick one and move on. But for the thought experiment, like if we're talking about which one would be listening to my intuition, the highest self is like, just come on, just go, you're gonna be fine, get up, like it's fine, you're gonna fucking survive, you literally always survive, like it's gonna be okay. And then the other part of me is like, no, like, be kind to yourselves. Keep sleeping. And I swear it's like this like evil gremlin is like lulling me back into the cave, making me think that it's the kind option when it's not actually kind to myself to break my promise of wanting to have gotten up at a certain time. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah. So this is the opportunity where you evolve your relationship to that voice.
Yeah.
And this is something that will carry with you, like in other aspects of your day to day life. And this is something that I've really been learning is like this energy of resilience.
Mm.
And like, I've really been understanding. I've like gotten back on my Peloton in the past week, and I have had this whole awakening around what resilience is. And it literally is exactly what you're describing. And in those moments, you become more resilient when you actually lean into your intuition, when your ego is screaming at you to do the opposite.
My ego is a fucking sexy gremlin of warm blankets.
Come back to bed, baby.
Literally. It's like, stay. This is so kind. It's okay to be soft. I'm like, bitch, you're fucking misinterpreting the Instagram quotes. This is not what they mean.
No, but this is just like a stage of your path where you're evolving your relationship to that voice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power in that. And like you could see this like challenge as something that's like here to serve you. Cause then I guarantee there's gonna be moments that come in your life where that voice comes back and you're like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
I know you. Sit down, stay a while.
Exactly. Yeah. I think basically the current invitation is like the word devotion really speaks to me because I think it's the feminine version of discipline, where the feminine is tapped into your intuition and knows that sometimes discipline can come from like a very like structured hard side,
like toxic masculinity. I feel like devotion is the balance, and discipline can have this tonality of like toxic masculinity.
I think devotion is like the feminine's way of embodying discipline, but adding like a mindset to it that's out of love. That's like, I'm devoted to you because I love you so much. Like in a relationship, you know, you think about showing up for the person because you're devoted to them. you don't want it to be like out of like, I have to love you. Like that's
Yeah.
ew.
Yeah.
Like I want you to love me because you almost like can't help it. Like that's how I think the evolution of like being your like own coach and like bringing yourself through the scenarios is adapting to a mindset of like I'm devoted to myself, which means it changes how I show up and like the decisions I make or which voice I listen to.
And the devotion comes when in the moment of whatever practice you're doing, whatever movement, whatever ritual, when you're in that moment and instead of thinking, I am doing this thing to one day feel a certain way, you allow yourself to actually feel the presence, the joy, the resilience, whatever it is you're feeling in that moment. And then that practice becomes something you want to do because you're accessing that energy in the moment. And you're
Yeah.
like, damn, I'm actually going to be so devoted to this practice because it allows me to feel XYZ or to
Yes.
access XYZ.
Yeah. That's like the epitome of my understanding of meditation, which I know is something you want to talk about, is from an Eastern philosophy standpoint. Meditation is not this like transactional thing that you do to like get to the other side. It's actually like just being at the place already and like just existing as you are is the whole fucking point of meditation.
There's no destination.
You're literally sitting there existing. That's the whole goal. Like there's literally nothing else to do. So it's really interesting because I think that's where the Western mind kind of takes over these ideas and is like, oh, great, this is going to get me to point B and C and D like 10 times faster. And maybe like that is like a really great side effect of the thing. But I think the more sustainable approach is realizing that all of these practices or like the goal of me wanting to wake up earlier and do like a proper morning routine is actually just so that I can be present and be peaceful in that moment. Like, isn't that the whole goal of life, is to just feel really nice?
Yes.
And so like meditation, I remember this just clicked for me so massively when I was like, oh, this isn't something that I need to like force myself to do so that I get more out of life. It's just arriving where I am anyway. Like literally the Buddha enlightened because he sat under a tree and started meditating and realized that like that was it. He was enlightened. Like he just saw reality as it was in that moment, which meant he wasn't like theorizing or trying to like get to the root of the problem. Like he just saw it all and that was it.
Right. It's a realization of self. But back to like this devotion topic and the rituals and the practices, I have found in my own like life path that the moments that I feel the best in and I'm so aligned and I'm really connected to my power and I'm creating are when I have a devotion to my practices. And it's this very common theme that I notice in my life where I'll start to feel so freaking good that all of a sudden the practices start to slide and the devotion starts to slide because I forget that those are the things that are allowing me to access that energy and that feeling. So a part of like living life is you gain the wisdom and the knowing of which practices are the ones you want to remain devoted to. And once you have that realization, it's just a constant practice of like leaning into the things that bring you the most joy, that bring you the most presence, that allow you to actually feel like if whatever journey or path you're on isn't bringing you more peace, presence, ability to feel joy, gratitude, then what the heck are you doing? You're just like fulfilling another part of the ego that's trying to like get you somewhere. It's all here right now. Everything that you could ever desire is right here, right now. So another thing that we exchanged over voice note was this knowing that like when you have the urge to lean into more of a devoted practice with aligning your energy and doing all the things, you most likely are getting an intuitive hit of this next chapter that you're stepping into is going to require you to be able to hold more energy and to become aware of that. So these practices are going to allow you to be in that energy in the now. There's no getting there. There's no becoming. It's right there in that moment. And as you are with that energy and you expand your awareness, let's say through meditation or working out or journaling, whatever it is you're doing, being in nature, you're already in that vibration and you've timeline hopped. So just tying into like the lesson with seasons, like release the judgment. This is like not a time to judge or to shame. Like every single part of everyone's life will always have, every single person's life will always have seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And to know what kind of season you're in. Are you in a season where you can be a little more intuitive and flowy? Is that what you're being called towards? Or are you in a season where maybe you're calling in a lot of things, you're calling in a lot of manifestations, and it is requiring you to be present, maybe a little more present and more aware of the energy that is already in your reality. Does that like land and make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'm having this interesting like thought experiment come up where I was just imagining as you were saying all that, like imagine the reason why a lot of this, okay, I'm getting my thoughts together. We call all these things like practices, right? We're like, this is a thing that you have to consciously decide to go do. And what's interesting is we've kind of grown up in this world, at least in the West, where we weren't really taught like the actions that are congruent with happiness as a default. And we're in this world that teaches us that all the actions we take are, we are in a world where the actions we take do not actually satisfy our soul. And because of that, we have to go through a phase where we relearn what it means to actually be a human and to feel fulfilled and to like satisfy your soul. And it takes like this rewriting of what is normal. So you think about like, you know, most of us in the West grow up where it's like you get to high school and college and you drink and you party and that's really fun and that's how you meet boys and that's how you this and that, and then you study and you get a job and you follow this predetermined path. And like whoop-de-doo, fucking 2020 rolls around and we have a massive collective awakening where people are like, this is fucking not working anymore, like something needs to change. And I'm just having this realization of like, imagine in the future, or even when we like raise our own kids and we teach them from a young age these quote unquote practices of meditation and presence and stillness and reflection and intuition, and they start to have a factory default setting of understanding that those are the things that are fulfilling in life, instead of spending time doing things that are not actually fulfilling on a deep level. They're like satisfying to the ego, and how they won't even view these things as practices. They'll just view them as like breathing, which is like the entire goal, or like the whole point of enlightenment in the Eastern sense, is to realize that like every waking moment that you're breathing, like you are awakened, you're enlightened. Like there's no way for it not to be. You just might not be aware of it. And there's no like seeking, there's nowhere to go. It's just all in the eternal now. So it's like, imagine raising kids in a world or in just like a community where you can have them doing activities that are satisfying to the soul and like nourishing to us as like these universal energy beings, instead of following the path of the ego, which is what caused us to get to this breaking point in 2020.
Damn.
You know what I mean? Like we view them like, I have to go and put myself into this thing because right now it's against our nature, because we've been pulled so fucking far from our nature that we have to remember what it is, which is again why it's called a remembering of like, it all feels natural and good and joyful because that is how we're supposed to feel. It is how we feel, but we like have all this junk in our fucking environments, like social media addictions and the news and media and all this crap and the fucking poison in our food and our water that's just like making us go insane, that we have to do all this work to do things that are actually just existing.
Yeah. Yeah, happiness and joy and presence is your natural state of being. So to
Yeah.
do more of those things that bring you into your natural state of being, I mean, I'm just like reflecting on the things that allow me to do that. And another part of this is like the things that bring me the most joy and presence are going to be different from the things that bring you the most joy and presence. And to
Yeah.
not look at like what someone else is doing and be like, I have to do exactly what that person is doing, or else I will not be good enough. And
Yeah.
then you're like just doing something that someone posted online and it's not actually connecting you
Mm.
with your soul. So
Yeah. That's a
I,
really good point.
yeah, I love what you said though about teaching our children that. And I think it occurs, not that we're parents yet, but like I follow this one creator who is very devoted to her lifestyle. And she always shares how her kids will start to meditate with her or work out with her just because she's showing them that she's devoted to her own practices.
Yeah.
And she always shares that they learn through observation, not by force of like
Yes.
telling them what to do. And who knows, maybe when we have children one day, when we each have kids, it'll be different where like you just like want to tell them all the things. But I really do believe it's by example. We're
Yes,
the
it is.
best.
It's 100%. I mean, that's how we all learn is from observing and replicating what our parents do. That's why it's really funny. Like, and I don't know, I've like listened to some like parenting. My close friend of mine is a mom, and she just like is so like well read in just like parenting theory, if that makes sense. And one thing that they talk about is like, if you want to raise like a kid that is independent or let's say like a girl that is, you know, just strong and independent or like listens to her intuition or whatever it is in her feminine, like you're the first example of that. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to embody that. Like you have to just show the child what, what it is to be embodied, and then their personality and their nature is going to unfold. But it's so true. It's just like the world of, that's what's really beautiful about thinking about the future of becoming mothers is I'm actually like really excited about the fact that I'm in my 20s and I'm on this path of trying to become more conscious and to keep learning, and that it like brings me a lot of ease knowing that I'm probably going to do an okay job with a child because I'm just like already trying to learn a lot and I want to just be in that like loving conscious state as a mother. And I mean, I think the next generation of kids is going to be so fucking fascinating to observe. Like, we're in our silo of being whatever we are, but, at least in our silo of the world, like it could be interesting to see how kids turn out.
I know I am a little I don't know. We'll see how it all unfolds. That this can be a whole other podcast
You're
topic
like,
of
actually the world is fucked.
no,
So
that's not what I was thinking. That's not what I was thinking. But I feel like this is a good kind of segue to talk a little bit about like this healthy masculine and feminine balance. Cause I've had some realizations myself. I feel like I shared a little bit about my journey of like being more devoted to my practices before, but I had this huge realization the other day about the balance of like the masculine and the feminine. And I've always learned and known about, I should say, I've always known about the masculine and feminine properties, like the basics of it. But I had this really clear visualization come to me through a meditation the other day where I started to actually like really feel into the teachings of the feminine and the masculine and how I can bring more of the masculine structure and more like scheduling and planning into my
mm,
life to balance out my feminine. And just to give everyone some insight, I feel like I've been a little bit in the toxic femininity over the past few months of just like being a little too intuitive to the point where things don't get done.
mm,
And I saw this visualization through my meditation of a battery and how there's all this like beautiful energy that's in a battery, but it's not a battery without like the shell of it, without the
ah,
boundaries, without the sturdiness and the foundation that goes around it. And I started to realize that there's actually a masculine and feminine to every single thing in life. Like if you think about like conception and how an egg is fertilized, like the feminine aspect of that process is like the energy and the beingness of that egg. And then the masculine comes in to fertilize and like give it that foundation and that structure for that energy to actually flourish.
Mm.
And it is such a beautiful realization to know. I always thought that like my feminine would be suppressed if I was too rigid, and like I had such a repulsion towards like toxic masculinity and like too much rigidness in my life. But then I realized like, wait, my feminine energy can actually flow
Yeah.
more with the structure around it. And I can
Yeah.
actually tap deeper into like my creativity if I have the boundaries in place and the schedule in place. And I started to have like such a deep understanding of what it truly means to have that balance of the masculine and feminine, which I don't think I've had. And it was a huge awakening moment for me.
Yeah. I love the battery visualization because that's kind of, I think it's really easy to fall into the perspective of masculinity and femininity as being these like opposing forces, which like kind of yes, but I think more the truer way to look at it is seeing them as a balancing force, because that's in the end the whole way that everything is existing right now is because of duality, because of the balance. And you think about like in relationships, whether it's a man and a woman or not, the energy profile still applies where the feminine can feel free to like be in flow, to be held, to receive, when the masculine is also in its like divine place. Like that's how I feel in my relationship, is when my partner is like in his masculine, in the sense of being like being able to hold my emotions. I feel so much more protected and safe, and I just feel so much also more free to be like myself and to be in my feminine of receiving, of intuiting, of like whatever it is. And that's because the masculine is there to hold the structure. And then in your life, like you're saying, having like structure to your time lets you be in flow and lets you like have the freedom to act on your intuition. It's so like, yeah, it's so, I think it's really like luxurious to like fall into the extreme femininity of like extreme flow, but then to a certain point you realize that you need the structure or else it's unbalanced. And it's
Right.
like, you can't have one without the other. They literally exist in the yin and yang for a reason.
And even with manifestation, you could think of it as feminine and masculine, with the feminine being the thought and the energy and
Yes,
like
the
the
vision.
creativity, the vision, and the masculine being the doing and bringing that into form, into your reality. And you could literally look at anything in life and just like see the balance of the masculine and feminine in it. And it's really beautiful to then look at your own life and say, okay, how can I bring in more of the healthy masculine, or maybe how can I bring in more of the healthy feminine, and just to see like what shifts in your life.
Mm.
And for anyone listening, just to tune into, I guess, let me drop into like a little bit of the details of the masculine and feminine. The feminine is like what I've been saying, the energy, the creativity, the emotion, the feeling. Picture the inside of the battery. And the masculine is the security, the foundation, the structure. It's the fence that goes around the energy. And we have to bring the energy into specific,
Mm.
like, build picture, like taking energy and bringing it into some sort of like, or you can imagine like when you're making cookies and you put cookies in like one of those little shape things. What are they called?
Yeah.
Why
The
can't I think of the name of that?
stencil? No.
you know,
Cookie cutter? I don't know. I know what you mean.
yeah, cookie cutter. And you take that and you form it into something with intention and creativity. And
Mm.
the same goes with anything that you want to create in life. There has to be that healthy balance. And you could have all these beautiful ideas and believe that you're actually like getting somewhere in life, but you're not actually bringing them into form without that
Right.
healthy masculine. And it's a
Yeah.
constant check in with yourself of like, okay, where am I leaning in? And it's okay to lean more into the feminine, but then it's really important to be in some sort of structure where that energy could be held, like with a
Totally.
friend or with a partner or with like a coach or therapist or like someone to like hold you,
Yeah.
or in that space where you're feeling more in the feminine, where you're feeling all your feels. Like, how can you create something in your reality that is a place for that emotion to be held, like maybe journaling or something? So there's always a
Yeah.
balance. And it's so interesting
Totally.
to like see that in every aspect of your life. And you'll find that when you like balance it out, there's actually a lot more that gets created and your creation
Yes.
and your intuition gets to shine through.
Yes. I have to send you this video I just watched on YouTube. I'll for people, maybe we can try to link it in the description. This guy, these two researchers have done a lot of work on flow states and how humans achieve flow state, which is basically like how you become an optimal like performer, whether you're thinking about it from a spiritual perspective, right? Like
An
I
open
always
channel.
yes, an open channel, the state of non-forcing, wu wei, whatever you want to call it. But there's actually something happening in like humans that you can detect, that means that you're in a flow state. And they have all this research on basically how to like maximize your flow state. And one of the things that this guy talked about was like a way of organizing your day so that you are way more productive, but you're also not burnt out. And he talks about having these like hinge points throughout the day. So you know how like everyone, you know, universally agrees that the week starts over on Monday. So like Sunday is this like reset day. So he talks about how that's kind of made up. Like it's just that we've all agreed on that, right? Or like the new year, right? Everyone's like celebrating the last day of the year, and on day January 1, like we're in a new year, but like it's effectively made up. So
Everyone's at the gym.
everyone's exactly. So he talks about having these hinge points throughout your day where basically like if there's an activity that always guarantees that the rest of your day goes really well. For example, like if meditating for 20 minutes always means that you have a great day, or if getting up at 5:30 means yada yada yada, or it could be watching the sunset, whatever it is. The point is he sets these hinge points where you have to hit the point so that the time in between is essentially allowance for flow. So like getting up every single day at the same time, having lunch exactly at noon, and then being done with work at 5. And then, but like you basically put
I
these
love
fake,
this.
yeah, you basically put these quote unquote, I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, and people should watch the video because the guy does a way better job. But the whole point is like into your day, put in these mental hinges the same way that Sunday and Monday act in your mind, where it's a new week. Say at 5 o'clock, we're shifting to a different activity. But then within that 3 hour time span, you can do whatever the fuck you want. So, like, you know, you can arrange your work day or say, I always want to, you know, leave time for blank every single day. So you have this period and you don't have to like schedule it to a T in between, but you have a hinge point that says at this point, we stop doing this activity no matter what, we move on to the next one.
As you were saying that, I was imagining the hinge points being like someone setting up fences. And once you have those 4 fences up, you like let the animals free and they're like running around playing. But without the fences, you would lose
Yeah.
the animals.
Yes, exactly. Which is what happens to us when you like have too much flow. You're like, yeah, this is so great. And then you're like, wait, a week has gone by and I didn't do anything.
What year is it?
Literally. So I love that. This idea really shifted things for me. And I'm trying to like slowly integrate this of, yeah, having like markers of like, no matter what, this is the masculine and feminine. The masculine is like, just an example, at 5 o'clock every day, you're done working. You do not work anymore. Like you can't, you have to stop, right? If you miss that hinge point, at least you have to hit the hinge point of at 8:30, you start getting ready for bed, right? This is one he made so that he could get up at 5:30 every day because he knew that if he got up at that time, like his days went really great. So if watching the sunset every day for you means that the next day goes really, really well, then you basically work backwards and make an entire like quote unquote schedule that supports you watching the sunset every
I'm
day because you
obsessed. I
know
think
that
we
that
should
works.
add this to what we're doing. Pretty much Belle and
Yeah.
I want to like put together an accountability program between the two of us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna send you this video and we'll link it in the description because it was really helpful and it totally like played that balance of structure versus flow and not being like so militant about your schedule that you're just like fucking burnt out and miserable, but also understanding that you need structure so that you can get into a flow state. Like the whole thing is to capitalize on your flow state.
And to figure out what structure works for you. Like
Yes.
test and play around with wake up times or bedtimes or what those hinge points are.
Yeah.
Because then as you're testing, you see like where the feminine and where the creativity gets to flow and where your channel is the most open. If that's what you're wanting to do is create. I love this idea and I'm definitely going to integrate this because it really gives you the freedom to like choose your own kind of masculine while
Yeah.
sharing like an actual structure. I mean, even this practice in itself is like a masculine feminine. See,
Yeah.
everything can be broken down into that way.
Yeah. But
But
that's
yeah,
balance, which is I think what a lot of people are lacking is the feeling of too much of something, too little of something else. Like that's what makes you feel like, oh shoot, I gotta stop doing this thing, start doing that. Like that's being out of balance.
right. And our intuition is always guiding us with that. Like even you sharing that you're wanting to step into more of a morning routine chapter, that's your intuition guiding you back into balance.
Yeah.
And I think like the shame that we feel in those moments of being like, fuck, like I'm not doing the right thing. Like, no, 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 you're doing everything perfectly. And your little angel within your intuition is guiding you back into balance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's, yeah, the whole reason that we have opportunities to grow is if we have little blunders along the way.
Yeah, totally. Um, I had a question for you. What do you feel like the practices are that let's like go into categories of like what are the practices that bring you into the most presence? And then what are the practices that you feel build resilience that you want to like test out or that you do already? And then joy.
What was the first one? Presence?
Presence. Or like practice of mindfulness or like being in the
Yeah.
moment.
I mean, presence for me either comes from when I'm like doing an activity that requires a lot of focus. So I'm trying to think of something recently. I mean, there's like two different kinds of presence for me. One is like, I'm just like on a walk in nature or a hike or something and I'm just like enjoying like seeing what's around me. But I also actually really like this kind of presence, which maybe is more arguably a flow state of like when I'm, for example, editing a video on my laptop, I'm like so keyed into what I'm doing that time kind of just like doesn't exist and I'm like super tapped into it. And for me, that counts as presence because I'm really like enjoying the process of creating. And yes, it's like on a computer, so you can argue it's like kind of artificial, but I'm like creating something, I'm making a video. And so it's like very in flow for me and I'm just thinking about what's on the, what thing I'm making on the timeline. And yeah, so anytime I'm like have to really focus on what I'm doing, that I think creates a lot of presence, which is the same thing with like, any activity in life. If I'm spending time with Milan or something, or we're doing something that I'm just like super tapped into the two of us, it's like, yeah, usually there's an activity involved where I'm like dancing or in nature, or there's kind of something that is pulling my energy like into the thing in front of me.
And into your body too. I feel like
Yeah.
shuffling and dancing for you is something that really brings you into your body.
Yeah, that's an amazing one too, because I actually have to go through like a phase at the beginning of it of overthinking and being like, oh God, I'm not warmed up yet, or fuck, I hope no one sees me right now. Just like overthinking it. And then all of a sudden, like the switch flips and I'm in like a flow state of being very present with the movement.
See, these are the things that when we do more of those in life,
Yeah.
that gives you greater access to everything within.
Yeah, exactly. I like the resilience one too. I mean, breath work, realistically, like in terms of what's happening inside my body, is obviously amazing because it's literally strengthening my nervous system. And
That's
it's
a good
also,
one for resilience. I didn't think of that.
yeah,
Sorry, keep going.
yeah. I mean, in terms of like biologically building your body's ability to handle stress or adversity, I think people tend to forget about the breathwork one because it seems like a very feminine, soft practice. But like, if you're doing like more intense practices, like with breath retentions and stuff like that, you're actually expanding your nervous system, and it's also like hard. You're literally holding your breath as long as you can. Um, and that's I always notice when I'm consistent with my breathwork practice, then I'm like way less anxious, and like any obstacles in the way I overcome a lot easier. Like I used to be a very anxious, worried person, and now lately like it's just gone way down, and I think I'm so much better at like having a stable, just like a better stable, a better baseline of like emotions and all that because of my nervous system is like very well equipped for stress.
That's a huge one. It's also like the physical and the somatics of that with the nervous system, but also the mental aspect of that too.
Yeah.
You could maybe like what you were saying before about the devil and the angel when you're waking up in the morning, like view it the same way you do a breathwork practice and see if you
Yeah.
can like breathe through that voice.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Like whenever you're doing long retentions, it's like you have to think about you have to just try to observe the discomfort and not like do anything about it. Like you just have to sit there and just try to observe it and still like try to relax your body during it. And it's such a like safe way to expand your your zone of tolerance of stress.
And to feel whatever the hell comes up during that.
Yeah, exactly. And to just survive like the feeling of it, of just observing it, which then lets you be more present with your emotions and like all the things.
I was on a Peloton ride this morning and I chose one that was like a 45-minute it's called Sweat Steady. It's one of Jess King's classes, who is a Peloton instructor. And the whole class is about like she doesn't label it as an endurance ride, but it's just about doing hard resistance levels at a sustained amount of time. And she gave like this whole talk throughout the entire class on how like we're increasing our capacity to hold the emotions that are coming forward. And she literally gave a whole little talk at the beginning of the class and was like, we're going to use this class to work through any emotions that are on the surface for us. So I feel like this connects beautifully to like whenever you're doing any sort of resilience practice, what is coupled with that, and I'm like realizing this now as I'm talking, is like the emotions that come up during that process when you put yourself in discomfort. It's like an opportunity for like releasing shit and getting it out.
Yeah. Oh my God. 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's why movement is so fucking important. And it's like, I feel like it's like the first thing to go for a lot of people because it requires a pretty big lift of like literally getting like your ass out of where you are and like going somewhere else. But it's so transformative for resilience, for your nervous system, for fucking everything is like movement, because it literally gets everything going. It opens up the physical energy channels in your body. Like I love my sister was telling me that one time she cried in like a soul cycle class because they make it so like about bigger things, which there's a reason why I think movement is so tied to that for people, because it's one of the best ways to actually confront your limiting beliefs of what you think you can handle.
Yeah, that's I actually need to try a soul cycle class because I love this one Peloton instructor because she's always bringing in these deeper topics while you're on the bike. And I used to, like, in the past when I would get on the Peloton, I'd be like, fuck this, like, just get me through this
Yeah.
class. Like, I just want to like check this off my to-do list. But now when I get on the bike, I I'm like having this conversation in my head of like, okay, let's see how I can shift this relationship with discomfort throughout this class, or like let's see what
Yeah.
comes up, let's see what emotions are there. And I'm like, I'm feeling frustration. And she had this little practice in today's class that actually like helped so much. It was on the last leg of like a really long hard stretch, and she said, okay, become aware of the discomfort that's in your body, like feel it, where is it in the body? Once you have it, breathe into it, be with it. So we all took a breath and like we're breathing into it. And she said, okay, good. Now you're in front of it. And I visualized
Mm.
myself being in front of the discomfort. And I was able to finish that last leg of the ride with so much, just like such a determined mindset. And I felt so good. And it's
Yeah.
so helpful to be able to visualize the discomfort and you being in front of it or you being above it. Because a lot of the times when we're not in that state of resilience, we're actually identifying with the voice that's telling you you can't do it. So you got to
Yeah.
be ahead of it or above it or in front of it. And that helps you kind of separate.
Yeah. We just turned into fitness junkies. We're like, you gotta work out. It's like Joe Rogan's classic line. He's like, I'm beating a dead horse, but you need to go to the fucking gym and struggle. It's like so true though. You have to physically struggle. It's so good for you.
Something that I had a huge realization around was I always had this belief, and it's pretty crazy. Last night I realized I've always had this belief that I'm just like, just not good enough for that like next thing or that next level. And I looked back at all these patterns in my life, and whenever I get good at something, it's like I have this belief. So then I take myself back a few steps. And this, I'm going to say in the past, I had this belief. And last night I was laying in bed. I was like, holy shit, I didn't realize how prominent this belief was in my life. And I was thinking about how when I was like in middle school, I was like first chair flute. And then I self sabotaged my way all the way to the last, second or third to last. With basketball, I was like on the A team. And then next thing you know, like I wasn't practicing, wasn't good enough, got taken to the B team. With track, I was on like the B running team, and I was told like not to try hurdling because it was like my sister's thing. And with basketball, I like didn't try out in high school because I like didn't think I was good enough. And the patterns go on. Like with college, I wanted to go to Binghamton, but I only got accepted for the second semester, not the first.
Mm.
So I had to go to another college and then go to Binghamton for the second semester. It was this pattern of like just being there, but like not good enough. And I feel like
Interesting.
that was always the result of me believing the thoughts of like, just give up. Don't do that. You're not going to make it anyway. So now I'm like
Mm.
practicing, like hearing that voice and being like, no, 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 we got this. I'm going to prove it to you. And it's
Yeah.
such a different mindset to have where I'm like rewiring a subconscious belief while also creating new patterns and change in my life. And yeah, I just had that like huge realization last night. I'm like, damn, I feel like I just went through like an ayahuasca ceremony.
Yeah, dude, that is powerful. Wow. Wait, so did you say what your oh yeah, yeah, the working out as a resilience practice.
Yeah, but I wasn't doing this for so long. I was practicing like endurance and
Mm.
hit workouts and working out in the past from like an angle of like I need to do this to like stay
Yeah.
fit. But now like I've gotten back on the Peloton and I'm like, damn, like this is so freaking good for my mental health because I'm getting
Yeah.
more resilient. So now I'm seeing all these things as a way to access like deeper truths of my being as opposed to like becoming like more fit or like skinny or like more
Yes.
whole.
Totally. Yeah, and it's like that's where the extreme of becoming too soft comes in, where then you aren't resilient and you can't like, pull yourself through life's ups and downs. And we see that in culture too, of people who just like literally do not perceive what is a real threat and what is, worthy of your time of like, confronting, and all the small inconveniences turn into like fucking mountains when you are not resilient. And it's not a admirable trait. You do not want to be too soft because that's where things are out of balance. You have to bring in the masculine, the doing practice to build up the resilience.
Then you access deeper levels of your creativity and your feminine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Amen. Mic drop. Mics stay in place. And then joy.
Nature for
Joy.
me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Beach, nature, being
Mm,
with like good people, connection,
yeah. Yeah.
community,
Oh,
play,
community. Yeah.
like all of these things are where we get to really, I feel like the joy aspect of things, of like practicing the things that bring you most joy, are where you get to like access that light energy that exists within you. So you have awareness around like, whoa, like I have the ability to
Mm,
feel this way in life. And then you carry that over into other aspects of your life. You're able to integrate a softness into things that may have been a little more tough.
yeah.
So, like joy and play, I mean, it's just essential. But being on
Yeah.
the beach for me is like where I really connect to
Mm,
this like feeling of just like bliss.
yes. Yeah. The ocean for me is fucking huge. Yeah, now I'm thinking about it, like animals and nature, dude, the bunnies that live in my backyard make me access a level of ecstasy that is potentially concerning. They make me so happy. Like birds flying through the sky, definitely nature is just like, I think that's also because I think it takes kind of some active work to like rewire what brings you joy. And this is especially where, your awareness of like how much time you're spending consuming and like all of this like quick hitting content, fucking scrolling, another, like that's so bad for your ability to enjoy things in life. I'm convinced is like when it's your dopamine. Like your dopamine levels can get so fucked when you're just like constantly consuming things and have the ability to like see something new, another new thing. And it kind of takes you out of being able to just like observe whatever is simple, which is like, that's if nature can bring you joy, I think that's a really good sign. Really good.
Yeah. Back to what you're saying about the dopamine. It's like, I was listening to a podcast yesterday where I don't know if she's a health coach or a nutritionist. She was talking about how your dopamine receptors are also changing with the food that you eat. So like if you're
Oh my
very
God.
used
Yeah.
to chasing pleasure through eating, then healthy meals will feel like they're lacking.
Yeah.
I don't know the way that you worded it, but you're getting what I'm saying. So
Yeah. It's not
you
going to
would
be as satiating.
you adjust, you like your even your taste buds change. Everything in your
Yeah.
body changes when you start to actually lean into the things that are simplistic in form, but actually do give you joy when you're fully present with them and when you're more
Mm.
established with those in your routines. Which is cool to think about. And she was talking about how like now that she eats a healthier diet, that like eating a sweet potato tastes like so good to her, and like bananas are like
Yes.
amazing. And that like when
True.
you're eating a meal that has like all of these preservatives and additives, you're actually super sensitive to them, and you're like your body's like,
Yes.
what is
Oh my
this?
God. Yes. That's what happens to me is when I like do you know, a really good job of like just eating actual real whole foods. Then when you eat like a fucking fried chicken sandwich that's lathered in seed oils, you're like, this feels fucking terrible. Like this is actually poison. I had actually a close friend of mine was telling me she was doing Whole30. She was only like a week or two into it. She like stuck to it. She like one day was like, fuck it, I'll have some fries. She had like 3 or 4 fries and felt so ill, like so sick to her stomach. She was like, this food is literally poison. And we just get used to it because we're so well adapted that we like our bodies adapt to feeling like shit all the time that we don't realize it's literally poison. Like this,
Oh,
all the food that it's fucking fake and has all this shit in it. It doesn't actually feel good, but you think it feels good because you've been eating it for so long, which is what that happens to me.
that's kind of creepy if you think about it, but nothing hits
It's
better
really
than a good
creepy.
chicken sandwich.
I know I do love a good fried chicken sandwich. Oh, so fucking good. But yeah, unfortunately, it is poison.
All right. Should we wrap up? I guess we covered
Yeah.
a lot of topics. Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on? Anything that's still alive for you?
No, I think we crushed it. I think that was
Crushed it.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was good. I was glad to like share actively what's been going through our own what we've been going through in our own journeys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for tagging along. And well, now that we're 4 episodes in, we can start saying things like, if you enjoyed the show, leave us a review. Okay, but actually, if you're enjoying the show, like, let us know, because we're really excited to be doing this. And this show is just like our little baby, and we're just fucking excited to be doing this. So yeah, reach out to us. Let us know if you've been listening. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit like, do all the things that helps the show out. And we're just excited to keep doing this. So thanks.
Bye, guys.